Hello, welcome back to Rob, Ryan, Red, the Wrexham podcast brought to you in association with Red 10 People Development. Well, what a week it's been. We sinned against the Saints, we were mauled by the Tigers, and yet the Red Dragons roar as strongly as they ever did. On today's podcast, we'll look back at what we learned from the first two matches of the new campaign. Does Ollie Palmer still have a future at the club? And of course, we will look ahead to this weekend's clash with West Brom. All that and more on today's show.
Rob, Ryan, Red.
So, Nath, well, what a week it has been. We were there at Southampton. We were there for most of the game against Hull City on Tuesday night. We've seen just about every Wrexham first team player you'd want to see in action, other than those who are injured at this stage of the season. How are you feeling? What's your mood like after your first taste of Championship football as a Wrexham fan?
I feel like we've maybe underestimated some teams in our predictions and maybe overestimated Wrexham. That is my feeling from the first two games. My main takeaways from the first two games: couldn't go in hospitality every week because we were in hospitality, thanks to the guys that invited us to that for Southampton. Couldn't do that every week. Definitely couldn't do hospitality for games where you are the away team. That's excruciating. Another takeaway: Hull City are a lot better than people think. I think saying they'll go down is a fairly lazy take. I can understand why their fans were protesting against everyone that had them in the bottom three. I think they absolutely outplayed Wrexham for about 89 minutes of that game on Tuesday and still ended up on the losing side. And also I realised that Wrexham, and I know there's a lot of talk about getting 9 signings and not on 8. I think they might need a few more. I think they might need about 11, 12 maybe to really be where they want to get to. I saw an interview today in the Telegraph that Mike Williamson gave, and he said he presented 3 options to Rob and Ryan. What it would take to just be in a relegation battle in the Championship, what it would take to be mid-table, and what it would take to kind of be in the playoffs. And Rob and Ryan said, what would it take to be in the top 2? And in the end, they settled on just going for a kind of top half competitive budget and whatnot. So yeah, I learned a lot, but mainly I learned that the transfer market, I don't think, is closed from Wrexham's point of view.
Again, this stems back to what we've said on previous week's podcast. What we understand is it's a 2-year project to get out of the Championship. So this season is all about learning who's up for the challenge, who's not, getting as many of the pieces together as you can, then trying to finish the jigsaw next year and get that team assembled for a title push in what would be 2027. I know we're looking maybe a bit too far ahead there. I agree with you. From it to sort of give snappy sort of answer, like I say, Southampton for me proved that we've got a first 11 that is definitely capable of competing at this level, and Tuesday night proved to me that the squad depth just isn't there like it used to be in different seasons. We used to always say Wrexham's secret weapon in League 1, League 2, National League was we just had better subs than everyone else. We do not have that anymore, even if, ironically, our subs made a difference on Tuesday night against Hull. But I think our subs almost kind of cost us against Southampton, where they just weren't up to the speed, weren't up to the level. Losing Kiefer Moore, of course, in that match was a huge blow to us. Which game, I guess let's talk about Southampton then, because that's the team that we saw, the strongest 11. That kind of was the indication of, look, when everyone's fully fit, we'll see that or thereabouts, I think, won't we? New signs all look pretty promising to me.
Yes. Well, firstly, while I remember Southampton, we did go out the night before, and I want to give a shout out to someone who doesn't listen to podcasts ever, but this is more of a test that if Hugh is listening, and his friend Wolfie, who both live in South Wales. Oh no, Hugh lives in North Wales. Alan, his mate, lives in South Wales. Alan likes the podcast, nicknamed Wolfie. They used to sell programs in front of the Cop, but Hugh's basically never listened to a podcast, so this is merely a test, a social experiment to see if this message gets back to him or not. Southampton, yes, new signings. One thing I was going to start with, Rich, why I just hit my microphone there. I'm not angry about this, by the way, but Danny Ward picked ahead of Arthur, who played on Tuesday night. Of the things we learned from the first 2 games, Danny Ward is Phil Parkinson's number 1 this season. That surprised me. I know it didn't surprise everyone, but on the back of what was it, 24, 25 clean sheets for Arthur, don't think it was a disastrous pre-season, and it's also pre-season. I think Arthur's in a difficult spot now to try and get back in, to be honest.
I think it's what you need, isn't it? It's this ruthless competition for places that even someone as good as Arthur is not assured of a starting role anymore. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this one develops as the season goes on. From my perspective, that Southampton team was just everyone Parky trusts the most. It was just experience, wasn't it? And people who have been at this level, who have played there. And again, maybe goes back to what we said in previous podcasts before the season, that it's an awful lot of players in that squad who have to make the leap to a level they've never been at before. So maybe the way of doing it is giving a couple of them that chance, Brunt and Max particularly, and then you change the keeper so they've got some really experience in the middle of them and someone really experienced and confident behind them as well. And you know what? Wardy was great, I thought. Couldn't do anything about either of the goals. I thought he was really good with some aerial balls into the box. His kicking made Okonkwo's look world class. I'll have to say that. I don't think having this sweeper keeper role suits what Wrexham do at the moment. But I thought Danny Ward was really good. I thought O'Brien looked excellent in midfield. Windass, he's like a deluxe sort of John Rooney, which sounds like the worst compliment of all time, but he's just got something about him. I really like the way he plays.
Is that a compliment? Or I don't know. I don't know if that is. I don't know if Josh Windass will hear that and think, you know what, Rich is paying me sort of a lot of credit there. That I'm sort of
there's definitely a compliment in there. I mean, for those who don't know, John Rooney was Wrexham in 2015-16, and it got to the stage of the season, of 16-17 maybe, got to the stage in the season where we couldn't play him in games because otherwise it would trigger a 1-year contract extension that we didn't want to give him.
He couldn't start, right? So he would come on he'd come on after like half an hour or 35 minutes. It was bizarre. I remember,
and he is Wayne Rooney's brother as well.
I remember Martin Riley talking at the time about, just very, very quickly on that, is like so many players had these automatic triggers of new deals that the club basically couldn't afford at that time. Like they, wanted to change the squad. And so this weird thing where, your main players were sat on the bench and you bring them on after half an hour just to get around this loophole. But on the Danny Ward thing, I mean, I would fully expect him to come back in for West Brom. Bags of experience. I just think it's, like you say, I understand that. It's a big challenge. Is Arthur in the last 18 months of his contract or something like that? He will want another one or he'll want to go. So when we signed Arthur permanently, I think people thought this is the guy we're going to build with, and and that doesn't mean you have to be wedded to him forever. I understand that things can change circumstances, but definitely when he signed permanently, most people said, we've fallen in love with this lone player. This can be the guy that can go up and up. And I don't know. I think it's a tough spot where, goalkeeper doesn't change very, very often. I think it's starting the season when everybody's fully fit and you've gone from the number one to being the backup is a significant message being sent there. So let's see how he responds. We have got another game in the Carabao Cup. We should say that's just happened when we record this, Preston North End. So Arthur will get at least another run out. But after that, you never know as a backup goalkeeper, Rich. You just don't.
I was going to say, just a name drop here, because, we are journalists. There was a Man United game last season. I was waiting to go into the Old Trafford press room, and I was stood next to Paul Robinson and Peter Schmeichel. And they were having a conversation. It was after Newcastle away, where Man United dropped Andre Onana, and Man United gave some spiel saying, it's just rotation, he's being rested or whatever. And the two former Premier League goalkeepers, two of the very best of the Premier League, were literally having this conversation. I got to be privy to it. And they both agreed a goalkeeper does not ever get rested, for actual league games. So Danny Ward, that is his spot now until he's not worthy of playing it. Do you know what I mean? It's not, you don't rest him and give Arthur one match to see what he can do. I very much agree with there that Danny Ward is the number one for now. And then maybe you put Okonkwo in if, for whatever reason, that comes about. Kakache?
But lastly, I'm not going to drag it out. Lastly, but my point being is that you've got that Preston game that's going to be at the end of this month. Preston away, not the glamour draw. And I don't know about you, Rich, but as the balls were getting fewer and fewer, and I think Leeds were still in there, I think Man United was still in there, maybe Everton at one point, they got Mansfield. So it wasn't quite the glamour draw. Sorry, Preston fans. It wasn't quite the glamour draw given we go there already this season. My final point on the goalkeeper is that it was a big message sent there, I felt. One that definitely came as a surprise to Arthur, I'm sure, and people around him. But my point being is that Preston game, you don't know if Danny Ward performs fine, you're going to be sat on that bench for a long time, potentially the whole season. And that is difficult when you've been the main man for 2 seasons. So we're in a really interesting spot with the goalkeeper. I think if Danny Ward performs well consistently, Arthur's contract will be very, very intriguing. What happens there?
Of course, you've also got Callum Burton for choice, who won't probably get a sniff this season now, but it's what a problem that is to have. As I said before, I was so rudely interrupted.
Sorry.
Kakachi, I kind of want to go for the new signings because, again,
Yeah.
I only really I watched the preseason matches on television, didn't get a real feel for what sort of players they were, seeing what they do off the ball and stuff like that. Kakachi is an interesting one. Of course, we saw him against Southampton. Yeah, what do you make of him so far? I mean, he is the most compelling of the summer signings, isn't he?
Good athlete, I think. I think he showed that. I don't think. I think it was a credit to him that Southampton targeted the other side more often than not. They targeted Barney. They targeted Max. Lewis Brunt and Kakachi, I thought, looked a little bit more solid. There were moments where he lost concentration or gave the ball away in his position. I think he was one where I watched and thought, I can see the fundamentals of what you've got, but he'll get better and better. And I actually am looking forward to seeing him closer up at the racecourse. You know, St Mary's big stadium, we were quite high up, and I just think I'd quite like, especially when wing backs or full backs, you can get a really good look at them when you're close up, maybe in the paddock or wherever. The racecourse is not a massive ground, so you will just be able to see the nuance of the positioning and the athleticism again, just a little bit closer. So yeah, particularly Saturday against West Brom, that's a really tough game. You know, you might be up against Tom Fellows. That might be the matchup. Tom Fellows, an England under-21 international, good player, linked with various other teams in the Championship, some in the Premier League, linked with Southampton. If that is the matchup, I'd be really interested because I think that'd be a really good one.
Tom Fellows got the most assists, I think, in the Championship last season as well. So we'll go into our West Brom chat later, but they basically said he's one of their two biggest threats this weekend as well. Yeah. So that will be interesting to come along. And obviously, we'll start to talk about Hull shortly, where we talk about completely different players. In Southampton as well, Nate, just as a game, because I think regardless of the journey we've been on, the context to lose in that circumstance was very frustrating. Helped for us that we were in hospitality, we must say again. Thank you to, ironically, Southampton's kit sponsors who put us up for that. Must say, conceding in the 96th minute is slightly eased when you can go back inside and have 2 pints of Asahi and a cheese board. But, you know, if you want to look at the wider picture, what a problem it is now that we're losing away to Southampton. You can list off all these teams we've seen Wrexham lose to in comical fashion over the years. Like I said, the one that springs to mind for me is Alfreton at home. We lost in the 94th minute. Chris Westwood, who was our player of the season, we released him. He joined Alfreton and scored the winner at the tech end on his return to the racecourse. You know, it doesn't get as bad as that. But I wouldn't say to throw it away because it was such a compelling game, wasn't it? One thing that annoyed me about the analysis of the match is people were so focused on how few shots Wrexham had in the game. I think we had 2 or 3 shots across the whole match. But we had an O'Brien one-on-one and the Kiefer Moore one-on-one at the end of the first half, and they don't actually produce shots in those opportunities, but they're both 2 golden opportunities. That Hardy opportunity right at the death as well. Maybe if he'd been on the pitch a little longer, maybe if he'd already got a goal this season, he might have buried that. But we could have won that 2 or 3-0, but we could also maybe lost it 3-1, 4-1.
I thought we had 5 golden opportunities. Not in no particular order. Kiefer Moore, when he has to play it across earlier to Windass, it's a tap in on the stroke of our time. He's 2-0 up. Yeah, he just has to flash it across. Windass is unmarked in the area. It's a tap in. Bazunu would have had nothing to do with that. Just Kiefer Moore doesn't have his head up, and the chance evaporates quick. I think is it Quasi at the back for Southampton? Phenomenal defender. They got out of Germany. So that was one. I thought Connor Cody, when I watched it back, his volley from a ball in from Windass is a really good opportunity. And if you get that repeatedly in the Championship, you will score more often than you miss. Lewis Brunt had a free header in the area that I think, all right, it's a trickier chance to get over it. But again, a top quality player at this level will score from that header. O'Brien threw one-on-one. He's waiting for the contact. And fair play to Parky. He even said himself, it's not a penalty. He didn't have the pace to get away. That is where, you know, if you do have that pacey, lightning quick attacker, which I don't really think we have throughout the team right now, that would have taken him away from the defender. And, you know, credit to the defender for making up ground. And then that Hardy chance at the end, which is a brilliant save, you know, and that kills the game, completely neutralizes it. I don't know. Maybe we'll get onto Hardy, and he's missed a couple of good chances across 2 games, and he's one of them that you just want to see one hit the net, because the longer it goes, I know he said he went around the dressing room and like apologized to every player, and that's a good gesture. I understand that he's not the sole reason we didn't win that game, but it can eat away at you as a striker. So yeah, I thought we had 5 really golden opportunities, and that's not including Windass hitting the bar, and that's not including the penalty that he did score, or the red card that maybe should have been. So we had our chances. I was disappointed. Of course, I was, being surrounded by some Southampton fans that had the most idiotic opinions I've ever heard about Wrexham, and how they couldn't hear the away end. I thought the away end was really loud, incredible noise from there. I know how terrible Wrexham were. Well, we were 18 seconds away from getting a point off the side I predicted to win the league. So, yeah, was I disappointed? Sure. Was I devastated? No.
Yeah, it's one of those. And I suppose, again, maybe the flip side, though, to be devil's advocate on that is, yes, we didn't score to make it 2-0, which we should have done, but the goals, I mean, the free kick, I think it's one of those where, in hindsight, you can blame a player for giving away a free kick in that position, but he still got to then produce what he did, and that was a sensational free kick. The winning goal is quite poor, the diagonal ball. Longman misjudges it. It's just scrappy. Gets across the goal too easily. Kind of, again, maybe similar to one of the goals. I think Hull's third on Tuesday night was another pass across goal, and that's a common theme we saw maybe at times last season as well. Just some really sloppy goals to concede, but that's done. I suppose what's interesting, Nath, is Parky then makes 11 changes against Hull City for the Carabao Cup, but the system is still very similar. I know the strike force isn't quite the same because you've not got a Kiefer Moore replacement. Before we get onto other individuals, we have to talk about Ollie Palmer. You just have to talk about him. Tiger King, whatever you want to christen him now. Are you not entertained? Told to leave on loan, pack your bags, that's it. You've done your part. Disney FC's done with you. You can go now. You come off the bench. You play like that. You do everything asked of you and then more. 2 brilliant goals, an expertly dispatched penalty in the shootout, brilliant knee slides because Ollie Palmer, that's what he does. Is that a fitting farewell, or is that a reminder of just how useful he can be in this system? Because we saw how much Wrexham maybe struggled against Hull before we had a proper target man on, someone to put balls into the box. And again, this is what annoys me when people criticise Wrexham and Parky's style. No team in the world likes defending those sort of crosses into the box if they just come in like that. And Ollie Palmer, hey, as Josh Windass said, maybe he would score 20 this season for Man City because he's in the right place at the right time. And crucially as well, he's done it so many times before. I just felt he really had that belief. While people and certain fans might have left early, if anyone did see me outside the stadium at 3-1, I also saw you. So hey, bear that in mind. I was there for the penalties. Ollie Palmer, what do you do, Nath? What do you do?
Well, firstly, I want to put Ollie Palmer's situation into context, because we saw him at the end, very emotional, and I don't blame him. He said it was, what did he say? It was a top 2 moment in his Wrexham career. I'm going to get onto a couple that, I think of when I think of Ollie Palmer. This will be known as the Ollie Palmer game now. That, when we look back and people say, oh, it's just a Carabao Cup first round game. Look at the context, right? January rolls around. Palmer's been integral. I think he played almost every game bar 1 in that run to January. I remember games away at Peterborough and others where he just was a battering ram. He was very effective. Wasn't scoring goals, and we've spoken many times before on the podcast about, can you have a number 9 that doesn't score goals? We've spoken to ex-Wrexham players that don't believe you can have that kind of player. Gets to January, Phil Parkinson says, I think it'd be best if you leave on loan because I'm bringing in 2 strikers. Really appreciate everything you've done, but this is kind of the end of the road, really. Palmer says that no, he wants to stay and be around for a potential promotion. He feels like he's earned that right. That's absolutely fine. Watches a lot of games, as people saw on the documentary, from his sofa with his family. So he wasn't even at the ground for some of the games. Was not on the bench, was not in the squad, was not, in the stands. He was watching from home down in London. That is very mentally draining and difficult when you've had all the highs, that euphoria, that dopamine of being the main man, right? Fast forward to this summer. Was kept in the dark for a while, but I think it was maybe implied from January that you weren't in my plans in January. You celebrated the promotion. You're definitely not going to be in my plans in the Championship. Wrexham go make an early move for Ryan Hardy. They're pushing for others. Sam Smith's coming in January. He's good. J-Rod, I would quickly say that J-Rod didn't really replace Ollie Palmer. They're not like for like. J-Rod was playing the deeper role, right? But you've got Smith in there. You've got then gone and got Kiefer Moore. So it's definitely now, Ollie Palmer's finished. And there was a meeting last week or before the Southampton game. Yeah, the week leading up to the Southampton game. Ollie Palmer's told, you are surplus to requirements. Thanks for everything that you've given us since coming in on that Tuesday night. Was it against Grimsby where he scores on his debut? Thanks for everything you've given us. But you don't need to play for this football club again. We don't need you to play for this football club again. We have what we have. We're going to make more signings. You're done. Doesn't go to Southampton, a place that when the fixtures came out, he was desperate to go to. He said himself, like, I used to go to Southampton as a kid with my dad. It's a dream for me to go back there. He didn't go there. He was over at Wimbledon watching Wimbledon play at Plough Lane, back at his old club. I couldn't blame him. Why should he just sit at home? Go and watch some football. Get out there. Get your face out there. Kiefer Moore gets injured. Ankle ligament damage at Southampton. So when it comes to filling out the bench against Hull, he is the last man on the bench, the fifth, the sixth choice striker, whatever you want to say. And he's probably going into that thinking, if I get on for 5 minutes at the end, like at least I get to run out again at the race course, and that might be that then. Am I going to probably play against West Brom? Probably not. Sheffield Wednesday? Probably not. And then it's the end of the window. So to come on for, what was it, half an hour and a penalty shootout to completely disrupt the Hull City back line, which has a lot of experience in it. John Lundstrom, John Egan, people like that, ex-Sheffield United. And to just take it back to pure Parky ball. You know what I mean? It was just like McLean balling, Barney balling, Bosch. And it was just two brilliant headers, a classic Wrexham comeback. And for me, yeah, a fitting end. If that is the final ball that he kicks, that's the send-off that, if that is to be it, I don't think Parky will change his mind based on one game. I'd be surprised. That is the kind of send-off you want for players, right? Like you
want to
don't
leave
want
on
them
your terms, don't you?
Yeah.
On that high. I know this wouldn't be Palmer's terms in that sense whatsoever. He wants to be a Wrexham player for the rest of his career, probably.
Sure.
Again, another thing you mentioned, that he's had a squad number taken from him. He's back to the 35 he wore when we first signed him, and he might say, well, look, the new number 9 has missed 2 golden opportunities in his first 2 matches. Palmer's had two chances and scored both of his. So, we criticised him last season for not scoring enough goals, and now he's done exactly that. He got, 3 goals last season? He's got 2 in half an hour this campaign against a better team than any he faced last season as well. So it's a difficult one, but like you said, maybe it is just the farewell it needs to be. Maybe we need to not have that sentiment. And we spoke before that, look, if Wrexham had unlimited, maybe not unlimited, maybe 30-man squad places a season, they would have kept Stephen Fletcher. Ollie Palmer.
That was my question to you, though, Rich, because a few people said, well, Ollie can play the Fletcher role. He can come on and impact the game. With a 25-man squad, 2-part question to you. Could you make room in that for a player that is, really only Kiefer Moore has a similar profile and Ollie Palmer can come on? Can you make room for someone like that? And also, if you can make room, would you just not have kept Stephen Fletcher?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. It just comes down to the squad issues. And I was trying to explain to my mum last night, who sat beside me in the tech end, because she just didn't really understand how that all works. I was like, no, there's like Ashfield and James, they're the only 2 basically freebies we get. Everyone else has to be registered. So I was like, 7. I was like pointing at the squad saying 7 of those won't be playing for us next month. Like, they just won't be here. Like, that has to happen. Seb Revan, of course, has gone out on loan already now to Burton. He wasn't involved, and rumours that Dan Scarr could be off as well to League One. So it's a really difficult one, because what I do find fascinating is if Wrexham are going to play the way we think they will, and obviously have set up with Kiefer Moore, a lot of it stems on Kiefer Moore's injury, and maybe it's not as bad as we first feared initially. I still don't think there's another player. But basically what I'm trying to say is a target man is so integral to the way we play football. And I think Tuesday night proved that, hey, we've still got a hell of a lot going for us when we go like that, to put balls into the box and have a target man there. 2 things. Kiefer Moore, as we've seen already, is going to be prone to injury. He's going to be prone to fatigue. Kiefer Moore also, as anyone who's ever watched him in his career, he will get suspended for accumulating yellow cards this season because every time he contests for an area ball, he gets booked, essentially. So Kiefer Moore will be suspended. He'll get between 10 and 15 yellow cards this season. And then you need someone who can then do his role in the squad because you've either got to change your tactic completely or you've got to have another target man. I still think Ollie Palmer is the most natural replacement for him. And I actually think he almost fits the system better if you've then got better attackers playing off him. You've got Windass there. You've got maybe more coming from your wing backs as well. So I don't think Ollie Palmer will have a Wrexham future. But maybe I'm getting carried away. I think he should.
I think in a 25-man squad, you can name 5 strikers. Personally, that's what I think you can name. I think you name.
Can I ask you a question first? Can I ask you a question first before you maybe get onto this? Would you rather have Jay Rodriguez or Ollie Palmer in the Wrexham squad for this coming season?
I would rather have Ollie Palmer, but I don't think Phil Parkinson agrees with me, and I think Phil Parkinson won't have deliberated that long, I don't think, on telling Palmer in that meeting that you are no longer required. He basically told him that in January. So,
like you said, if Moore hadn't got injured on Saturday, Palmer probably isn't in the squad against Hull.
Probably not. Maybe probably not. It would be my answer. But I don't think Sam Smith can do what Ollie Palmer can do in terms of hold up and physicality. I don't think Ryan Hardy can do what Ollie Palmer can do. I don't think Ryan Hardy can do what Ollie Palmer can do. I just think 5 strikers. Kiefer Moore is definitely going to be in that, unless, we should say caveat, a lot of people asking, what's the update with Kiefer Moore? What's the latest with Kiefer Moore? As of Wednesday night, 8:08 p.m. when we record this, the club's plan is to assess Kiefer Moore on Thursday or Friday, depending on when the swelling on his ankle comes down. So I've been sent loads of things like slow-mos of the foot and the bend. Let's just wait and see. The club are reserving all caution and judgment and worry until that ankle, once the swelling and inflammation comes down, it might actually be more of an impact injury, and the ligaments haven't been ripped apart or whatever. We can only keep our fingers crossed that it's not as bad. Who knows? If it's not too bad, say the swelling has come down on Friday, he could be in the squad for, say, Sheffield Wednesday, right? In a week and a bit time, the 23rd, whatever it is. And suddenly you've got no dramas and we're back to where we are. You're going to name 5 strikers. Let's just say Kiefer Moore is fit in the next couple of weeks. Kiefer Moore, definitely. Sam Smith definitely gets registered in the 25. Ryan Hardy definitely gets registered in the 25. Who else are we going to have in there? Do you think Jack Marriott gets registered in the 25?
Not for me.
Does Ollie Palmer get registered in the 25? Does Jay Rodriguez? I would think Jay Rodriguez gets registered in the 25.
Shiny new striker?
Nathan Broadhead, that seems to be very, very close now, and I would expect to be done in the coming days. Ipswich, very coy with me today when I was trying to just assess where that was and how far over the line it was. I think that is done. He was not involved with Ipswich, a conveniently timed illness there. My conspiracy theory would be. So there you go, there's 5. Marriott came on, obviously scored the winning penalty. Fowler's gone out on loan. Mullen has gone out on loan. I don't see a 5 that includes Ollie Palmer, and that's with really trying to get around.
Again, and then that brings me on to the question: is what happens when we're playing without Kiefer Moore for a game? How do you set up? Because maybe Smith didn't look match fit to me on Tuesday night, which is understandable. He's just trying to get his minutes under his belt. Hardy, at the moment, it's 2 games. I don't want to judge him off this whatsoever. I still think get a goal or 2 and his confidence is through the roof. And it works both ways, Ryan Hardy. You can either say he's missing a lot of chances, or you can say he's getting the positions. He's getting some great positions to get both of those opportunities. That's a proper number 9. So, yeah, I feel like maybe that is the chapter closed for Ollie Palmer in a Wrexham shirt, which I've got conflicting opinions on. If we're going to talk about Tuesday night as well, then Nath, we mentioned at the top of the podcast that definitely Tuesday night didn't kind of exploited and exposed how little squad depth we've actually got, and that for a lot of players, the jump up to Championship and regular Championship football will be too much. I'll quickly read out the team maybe then that started against Hull City on Tuesday night, and I want you to just Just say which ones did you think actually made a positive impact and a case for a starting role, okay? Arthur Okonkwo.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Owen O'Connell.
I thought he was fine, but I wouldn't put him ahead of Max. No.
Dan Scarr.
Nope.
Aaron James. He's a free hit anyway, isn't he?
It's fine. I don't need to. He's a young player. Young player gets a bit more afforded, a bit more sort of concession.
Ryan Longman.
No, I think Barney's proven across the past 2 games. Maybe easier coming on against Hull in that final moment, but his ball in was brilliant. And I thought against Southampton, defensively a little bit suspect, but I think Longman hasn't done a lot in the first 2 games.
Ashfield.
Good young player, freebie.
Yeah, almost scored an absolute stupendous goal as well. It's in the tech end, watching that whiz past the post. Wow.
Yeah, there's also the argument that, you know, did that prove on Tuesday night that playing every week for a team in League One would be highly beneficial? I don't know.
Elliot Lee.
Unfortunately not. I love Elliot Lee. I just think, who are we comparing him to in that team? Lewis O'Brien or Josh Windass? It's a no on both counts for me there.
James McLean.
He was okay. A great ball in for the goal, but again, I don't think he did enough to sort of assert himself above Kikache. No.
Gorgeous George.
No, I thought he was actually the poorest performer for us. I thought he was unfortunately a bit like a traffic cone at times in that second half. And I actually don't think Hull were. I don't think Hull got out of second or third gear really. Really wanted it to work for Gorgeous George. I don't see a way that he's in the 25-man squad at the end.
Brian Hardy.
It's 2 games, like you say. Yeah. I don't think he made a compelling case to start now.
Sam Smith again.
Looks like he's still having his own pre-season.
Yeah, and again, maybe that is the alternative when Kiefer's not there for some games that you get Sam Smith in once he's got up to speed again. But the first few weeks of the season is going to be difficult to do that. I thought Windass off the bench was class immediately. O'Brien as well sort of raised the levels. I thought those two were kind of the unsung heroes if you want to be really hipster. But, you know, it's all about Ollie Palmer. We know that. Like I said, Marriott, decent penalty. Barney, brilliant ball into the box. But what I want to then get onto then, Nate, for you is, we said a couple of weeks ago, look, 9 signings, that might be enough for us to achieve what we want to achieve this season. I think like we said, the budget's there for a sort of mid-table team. We both expect Wrexham to be mid-table and it'll be a tightly contested league at the end. So it'll be a couple of points between sort of probably 14th and 8th. Do you know what I mean? And we'll be somewhere between there. But now we're saying, hey, maybe we need 3 or 4 more than what we've already got. What positions right now are worrying you the most? Like if Parky came to you and said, "Hey, Nathan Salt, I know you're a very successful podcaster. I know you're a good journalist. I trust you. You know, 4 years we've been all right as a football club, but we're going to take this to a new level. We're going for the Salt. Salt is the new director of football. What 4 positions do you want us to target? What are you telling me?"
I was going to say, before I change my job, let's just take a quick break while I figure out what I'm going to tell Parky. Right, Rich, after that short little interlude, I'm going to say that... So look, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to tell you what they want and what I've heard in terms of the transfer front. So they want another defender. So I thought Connor Cody, for me, was my man of the match against Southampton. I thought he was our best performer. He made a number of key blocks. I thought he led by example. I just liked everything about him. The post-match interview, his performance, everything. Not perfect, but it was good. Owen O'Connell proved that I think he can be one of the backups in that back line. I think if they had their way, the club, I think they would get 2 more centre-backs. A backup for Cody, someone who can just anchor it. You know, look at Lundstrom last night, how he just orchestrated. I know they conceded late on, etc., but thought for the most part he did really well. And I think they specifically want a left centre-back. I know that because they did make a bid for Callum Doyle at Man City. Now, Doyle has been on loan at places like Norwich, Leicester, Sunderland, and maybe another one that I'm forgetting. I think he's been on 4 loans. Wrexham, I'm led to believe, according to sort of sources, made a £2 million bid for Callum Doyle, which from one source said that it got laughed out of the room, that bid. How true that is, we'll see. But the conversation for Callum Doyle starts around £8 million. So you can see there is a huge discrepancy. But Callum Doyle would go in as your starting left centre back with Brunt then as your backup. That might be seen as harsh on Brunt, but we're not in the sentimental game, unfortunately, right now. Otherwise, we'd still have Lee, we'd still have Palm, we'd still have Mullin. Maybe you just stick with Farl and see how it goes for people like that. We're not in that sentimental business, unfortunately. I think they would go for Doyle if they could find the compromise. That might be a bit too expensive. That would be even more than Nathan Broadhead at the asking price. So I think they would like two centre backs, a left centre back and a central centre back. Haven't had any names for the central centre back. I also think they would like two new midfielders, which again raises question marks around Elliot Lee. You've got to think Rathbone to come back in. Thomason you spoke about before. I think I texted you maybe earlier on about Jordan James is set to leave Rennes in France. See Wales international. Could see the appeal from Wrexham's side and from the side of James in terms of Kiefer, Nathan Broadhead we expect to come in, Danny Ward. You're building the Welsh team basically up in North Wales. Jordan James, and whether they also go for a number 6. I think they're looking for somebody to alternate with Matty James. I think Evans showed that that's not going to be him. And Ashfield, as much as I like him, I don't think he's going to start lots of games. I think he'll be mainly maybe off the bench if he sticks around. Couldn't see him starting. So I think they're looking at Broadhead. This is what they would, the perfect scenario would be 2 midfielders and 2 centre-backs. I think if they get one of each, that's 3 more. I think they could probably live with that until January.
Again, it just adds to the dilemma of who you get rid of. And again, for note there, I want to say, personally for me, Matty James was maybe my man of the match against Southampton. I thought he was brilliant. I thought it was a real tough role he had. And again, James and Dobson might play a lot more than we maybe initially expected. But where do you make the cuts in this Wrexham team? It is very, very difficult. And you mentioned in there, people like Rathbone, people like Lewis Brunt might be immediately demoted to second choice in their positions. But we've seen now, haven't we? We've seen the level you need to be at, and wow, it is a huge step up for what Wrexham are required to do. Broadhead as well. I mean, we've spoken about this numerous times, Nath, and we do expect this now to go through. That Chuba Akpom's gone to Ipswich, and that was a key part for them. McKenna didn't want to sell Broadhead anyway, but it was not going to be until they've got a replacement lined up, and Akpom's an improvement on Broadhead again. But where does he fit in? Like we said, how do you start him? How do you get him into the team? There's so many bits and pieces. It's fascinating to think about. And look, the time is now ticking. We're just over 2 weeks to go until deadline day on Monday, the 1st of September. Then you've got to have your championship squad registration done, and that's locked until January. And you can make 2 changes to it, I think, in January, or 2 or 3 changes. I still can't call it. I still cannot call it because we're saying should Ollie Palmer stay? And when you boil it down like that, of course he can't be in the squad. If you're trying to add 3-4 more, like that, just answers itself. Sorry, spoiler alert for early in the podcast. I think I am way too sentimental to be involved in any running of a football club because, like you said, I can't. I'm finding it hard to cut more people now.
I won't name the person, but a friend of ours sent me a text, Rich, that said, I know it sounds a bit silly, but it doesn't feel the same when you don't know and you don't feel a connection to the players. And I can understand that totally. I heard that a lot in Australia. I get it. You don't know these players. You've got no sort of you've not been in the trenches with these players, but it takes time. You build it up in late November when we're playing whoever it is. We're playing in November, and you get a last minute winner, and it's not Palmer who's scoring it. It's Ryan Hardy with a last minute brace, and suddenly that's the Ryan Hardy game, and the lore around him becomes very different. But I do understand, seeing people go, seeing like last night, it was a night where Ollie Palmer has a match-winning contribution, basically. Paul Mullin has a match-winning contribution. Mo Farl has a match-winning contribution, and that's for 3 different teams. So, I can understand totally some people feeling that it weighs a little bit heavy, that you got to move on. But at the same time, like that Telegraph article said, Rob and Ryan want to go for the top 2. They got talked down from that ledge a little bit, but they clearly want to go for top half. And I think what I've seen across 2 games is those that have got us here, unfortunately, cannot get us there. And I look at it even further. You mentioned Rathbone. I think Rathbone will have a role. I think his energy. but I've said it before, Andy Cannon. And I felt for Andy Cannon. I don't know if anyone saw this on Instagram, but he put a picture up of his leg and how, and it really does show you what these players push through to get back out there. And then we don't need you anymore. Just signed Lewis O'Brien. We just signed Jordan James, or whoever they go and get, right? Mansverk or whoever it is. Lewis Kumas, I think that's maybe hinging on what minutes can we guarantee him. But it's very difficult. And to go back to one of your earlier points, what would I do? I said it before, I would play Kiefer Moore, and I would play Broadhead and Windass off Moore. Still get it out wide, but allow those players. I thought Windass showed you how clever he was on the ball. Those knockdowns from Moore, and he was able to just either play it through or drop it back to an O'Brien. It could go over the top, or really neat and tidy. And if you've got players of that quality, you've got to maximize them. And I think just shoving them into a system that's worked so well for us isn't always the way, I don't think. I even saw, very quickly, Rich, even saw that we won that game, or we ended up getting to penalty shootout with a back four. Now, Aaron James came off, another midfielder on, and Parky went to a back four, changed the shape. So,
like you said, you can see why they're calling Josh Windass the Deluxe John Rooney, can't you? But yeah, I mean, I agree with the sentimentality, but you know, we were used to watching the National League side that got ripped apart every single summer. Gary Mills would come in and release all your best players. Like that's just it. Wrexham used to hand out 2-year deals, so sentimentality was lost a long time ago in football, and we have to make these ruthless calls, like you said, if we want to go up the divisions. We were warned of this a long time ago, and it is going to be very fascinating to see what happens. I just want to say as well, Nath, before we get into the West Brom preview, thank you very much to the person. You might have seen. We were on BBC Wales News last Friday night previewing Wrexham's season. Thank you so much to the man who got in touch with about 30 seconds of it going on air and gave us a very abusive message on Facebook Messenger, which I forgot we had a Facebook sort of page, but he reminded me for our comments on BBC Wales News. So check that out if you haven't already.
Rich, all I want, if you abuse us, I just want it to be spelled correctly. That's all I want. I'm a stickler for grammar and spelling. So like, if you are going to call us every name under the sun, just spell it right. That's all I want. That's all I ask.
Doesn't ask for much, this boy, does he? Here we are, Ian. I won't give you a surname, Ian. But two pair of idiots. Does that mean 4 of us? If it's 2 pairs, to be, hasn't it? 2 pair of idiots. That's 4 of us. There's only 2.
Right.
You have just insulted the 2 owners. Spelled incorrectly. You just called them Americans. We didn't actually call them Americans. We said the good thing about American ownership.
There you go. That's what I said. Good thing about American ownership, baby.
That is like calling English. Mind you, you may be dumbass. Sorry, Ian, that we're not as intelligent as you. West Brom this weekend then, Nave. We were at the Southampton game with a Baggies fan, Matthew Smith, who was part of the party that was hosting us. He's got his own journalistic background as well. He's been a West Brom fan his whole life. You can tell by the accent that you're about to hear. And yeah, we spoke to him, caught up ahead of Wrexham's first home match back in the second division in 43 years. So, Matt, Wrexham versus West Brom this weekend, second game of the Championship season. What is the feeling, the mood around the Baggies? Of course, you had that opening day result as well. What were the expectations heading into this campaign?
It's tricky to say because, you know, near enough every season that we've been in the Championship since the turn of the century, you know, the expectation is promotion, or at least to be in the promotion race. And again, aside from the last 2 or 3 years, I suppose, it has been the case, and we've always been in and around the mix. I think this season's really different for a number of reasons. Obviously, Ryan Mason's now the manager, someone who's never worked in a full-time managerial position before. We've had a bit of an overhaul with the squad. We were bound to FFP and financial sort of rulings, which meant we had to offload a lot of the high earners, a lot of the star players, really. Anyone of value, apart from maybe someone like a Tom Fellows. It looks like one of our defenders, by the way, Hegem, star defender, will be off, might not play, probably unlikely to play, I'd suggest, on Saturday. So it's difficult to say. what the expectation is and how we're feeling going into the season. Obviously, there's positivity after beating Blackburn at the weekend. I'm not sure how convincing it was. By all accounts, we played some nice stuff. Probably should have scored more than one or two, but at the end of the day, a 1-0 win doesn't really scream convincing either. So there's positivity. My answer would be there's positivity. There's hope that Ryan Mason is the sort of breath of fresh air that we need. But the expectation isn't that we're going to storm the league or sort of maybe even earn automatic promotion. I think we all hope to be in the playoff race, but there's a lot of unknowns, and I think there's a lot of grey areas for Albion moving into the weekend.
Again, if you look at the Championship table, I mean, particularly from a Wrexham point of view, every team has basically played in the top division, haven't they? I think they have. I think Wrexham are the only team in the Championship now who haven't ever played in the First Division Premier League equivalent. So as a team like the Baggies, who have had those glory years in recent memory for a lot of us as well, there'll be that generation of fans who say, "Oh, West Brom are a Premier League team." How do you actually temper those expectations now that you are a Championship team again?
It's difficult, and I'd suggest that's probably part of why we've struggled since we last came down to the Championship, because we've all had this mentality of, at all costs we've got to be in the promotion mix. And I think it's probably fair when you initially come down and you've got parachute payments, and in the time before our last relegation, we were up within the second season. I think we missed out the first year in the playoffs, and we appointed Slaven Bilic, and he was given sort of a 2-year target of get us back before the parachute payments run out. Thankfully we did, but it's not been the case this time around. Obviously there was a lot of problems with the Chinese ownership previously. They were so sort of short-term focused. They were so focused on getting their money back, because they paid us sort of like 200 million for the club when we were in the Premier League, which is sort of bonkers to think about now. So they were so sort of focused on getting back and sort of getting the value back, really, that it was just, again, we need to be short-term in the Premier League and then think about it. When think about the Premier League when we get there, which again when we did, it was so short-term focused again that we sort of had no plan. When we actually got to the Premier League, couldn't invest, and we dropped back down. So again, it's been hard, as you say, to really get used to a lack of expectation, or get used to where we are and what the realistic situation is now. I think we looked at signing too many loan players and not developing our own players. We were taking out loans financially here and there just to get us on a sort of footing where we can gamble on promotion, that sort of thing. So it's been difficult, and it's been difficult for fans, and I'm probably still guilty of it, of expecting at a certain minimum, a certain standard from an Albion team. I expect us to be in and around the top six. If we're not involved in the race, then I think it's a failure, and it's a failure on Ryan Mason's part. It was a failure last season when we dropped away. I'm not saying we're the best team in the Championship. I'm not saying we've got the best players. We didn't last year. However, I think, given our history, as you say, given that we've got good players, we still do for this level, I think, we've got to be in and around pushing for the top six. Anything other than it's a disappointment, and whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but that's how a lot of fans do feel.
Of course, we're recording this now. 2 games been played. Defeated Blackburn at the weekend, 1-0 on opening day. Lost on penalties to Derby in the Carabao Cup. Again, they're two of the teams, similar to West Brom, where you can't really place them in the Championship, because they could be anywhere from one of the late charges to the playoffs, a team who could get sucked into a relegation battle. What have you learned from West Brom as a squad over these first 2 matches of the season? Were there heavy changes on Tuesday night in particular? Did you see a whole different squad, or is there a clear sort of best 11 that Ryan Mason already has?
Well, that's the interesting thing, because there weren't really many changes going into last night, Tuesday night. I was shocked to see the amount of players who played on Saturday also feature on Tuesday. I think one issue I mentioned, that we've had to offload quite a few players, and I think we've had a few injury issues too, but that's played a part in certainly reducing our depth. And we've not got as many options to call upon as perhaps we had last season and in Championship seasons gone by. So I was shocked to see the likes of Price, Fellows, Johnston, Hegebo play last night, and they're all. I'd expect all 3 or 4 of them to start on Saturday. If I'm honest, unless they feel Josh Madger's fit and ready to start, then maybe he'll come in. But Fellows, Price, Johnson, they're key players, and I was a little shocked to see them play on Tuesday night in the Cup. But I suppose Ryan Mason knows best. Maybe he doesn't feel like we have the depth. Would I say he knows his strongest team? I think he understands sort of the basis of it. I think he understands that the likes of Price and Fellows will be key to our attacking play. Nat Phillips was, by all accounts, really impressive against Blackburn, so I expect him to be sort of a pillar of the defence moving forward. But there are also a few moving parts in terms of Hegem. I mentioned looks like he might be off. Don't take this as gospel, but I do suspect he might not feature on Saturday, which then leaves an opening at the back. Would it be Caleb Taylor or would it be Campbell, the American chap who's coming? I'm not too sure. Furlong, Donald, who's got I think he's captain now, got the captain's armband at least. In the absence of, Wallace was on the bench against Blackburn, so we've got. Is he back? No, completely ignore that. Furlong served his suspension last night, so we will play. But even the midfield too, Malumbi and Moa, I'm not sure. He's not convinced there's enough there to sort of really dominate Championship games. So there are a few question marks still going about. The goalkeeper Griffiths kept a good clean sheet, so I think Ryan Mason knows what he's trying to do and where the strong sort of pillars and regulars in the team will be. But there are still sort of moving parts, a lot of unknowns, and hopefully still some new faces to come in.
What is the sort of tactical approach of this West Brom side then? Have you changed the way you set up since last season, since Ryan Mason's come in, or is it still similar to how you used to play?
To be honest, I couldn't tell you what our style was from the moment Corberan really left last season. We didn't really. It was sort of, we saw some decent play at times, but all in all, there was not really much to us after Corberan left last season. In terms of what we've seen this year, I think will be the one thing that's caught my eye is the amount of bodies we are committing to attack. I think we're looking to get bodies forward, looking to get bodies into the box. Both goals have come from. If you look at last night, it was a really good ball in by Styles, the left back. But if you look at Hegebo, who's the eventual goal scorer, and Price, both in the penalty box receiving the crossing, that's really promising in terms of getting numbers forward. And the goal on Saturday came from a long throw, which is always a weapon with Furlong. So that's something Wrexham should take notice of. And again, we had a lot of bodies in the box, and eventually it fell for Price, who could score. So I like that side of things. I like that. Mason's keen to get bodies forward, because if you're not going to have bodies forward and bodies in the box, you're not going to score, are you? So that's one side of it. I think he likes to control play. I think a lot of modern managers these days, whether people like it or not, people might not Pep, they like to really sort of control all phases of the play. So it's when you've got the ball, you really dominate, you build pressure and that sort of thing, which Corberan was also strong on. So I think there may be more similarities between Carlos Corberan and Ryan Mason than fans may realise or may be willing to acknowledge, or maybe they might think. Both modern coaches, so I think we'll look to control the play at Wrexham. I think we'll, despite the fact being Wrexham's first Championship home game since promotion in what I believe will be 43 years, I'm sure there'll be a great atmosphere. There'll be a lot of sort of pressure of crowd pressure on us, and I do sort of have worries that we might fold under the pressure in front of the cameras and all that. But I think we will want to try go to the racecourse ground and control possession and try to dominate all phases of play like modern coaches are keen on doing.
Before we get your prediction then, who are the players we should watch out for? If the Baggies are going to come to North Wales and get a positive result, who's going to be crucial to that?
So I'm not sure if the viewers and listeners will be aware that I was with you and Nathan at the weekend, and I was telling you about Isaac Price. And again, he got an assist last night, which I was shocked. I said, why is he playing? I was just concerned that last night in the Cup they'll get injured and we'll be without him for the weekend, because he's really sort of making waves since he joined in January from Standard Liège. It was a player I didn't really know a lot about. He came through the Everton ranks and went to Belgium and really made a name for himself over there, which you've got to admire as a young player going abroad, this and that. He's also sort of the talisman for Northern Ireland, I think, these days as well. So sort of instantly, Isaac Price is in that sort of attacking midfield role is the guy I'd look out for, not only creating chances but also getting on the end of them. Championship fans will be familiar with Tom Fellows. I think he was the top assister last year. He's such a direct, old school winger. Will beat his man on the right, beat him, get a ball into the box, and hopefully we can capitalise on one of them. They're definitely the two key players going forward. Probably, again, by all accounts, Nat Phillips was superb at the weekend, so I'd hope that he'll really sort of become a leader and sort of maybe become something that we've lacked in recent times. And there's also a new striker I mentioned, Hegebo from Norway, who scored last night. And whilst we don't really know much about him, by all accounts, he worked hard on Saturday and got his first goal last night. So definitely Price and Fellows are the two I'd look out for. And in terms of new arrivals, Phillips and Hegebo too.
Given you've been cursed and you're a veteran of the Championship, unlike us, what do you think for this weekend then? You've already mentioned that maybe away from home, the TV, all the eyes on Wrexham to get a home result. Are you pessimistic, or do you fancy, you could spoil the party?
I'm very pessimistic in terms of we'll fold in front of the cameras. Everyone's going to be up for it in Wrexham, and rightly so. I suspect Rob and Ryan will be in attendance. I don't know. I think it should be a great occasion. I'm looking forward to seeing all the goings on Saturday, and rightly so. It should. I'd encourage everyone to soak it in. I think traditionally, a problem that a lot of Albion fans, and myself included, have had over the years, and especially since we came down from the Championship, is that we just fold under pressure, and we've not had real leaders. In my opinion, a leader's not only someone who can speak up and can sort of tell people where to be and what to do. They set the standard. We've not had many standard setters in recent times. Kyle Bartley's just retired, and I suppose he's a bit of a diverse figure between Albion fans, the same way Jake Livermore was. And whilst I appreciate he might have been a voice on the pitch and a voice in the dressing room, I think that the core of the dressing room in years gone by, which was the likes of him and Livermore and players like that, didn't show up on the big occasions. And when the pressure was on, we almost bottled promotion under Bilic. We lost in the playoffs a couple of times. So the big occasion and all that just hasn't gone down well with our team in recent times. We all hope this could be different. Is it going to be a new era? Ryan Mason, comes from a playing career at Tottenham. Hopefully, he can sort of instill bits and pieces into our team, like Nat Phillips. Hopefully, he's played on the big stage and can help out. But I am pessimistic. I'm not really confident. With all that being said, I'm not going to come on a Wrexham podcast and predict you're going to win. So I'm going to say 2-1 to Albion.
Rob, Ryan, Brett.
Well, Nath, as you said earlier, of the players to watch, the other one being Isaac Price, who's got a goal and assist now in the first two matches of the season. And West Brom, one of those teams that maybe for our generation, they're Premier League, aren't they?
Yeah, I just remember going to watch West Brom once at the Hawthorns. It was against Cardiff. That was a thrilling 3-3 draw or something, I vaguely remember. And a West Brom player ended up running towards the corner with seconds left, decides to have a shot, gives the ball away. Cardiff go right up the other end of the score, and that player gets punched in the dressing room by one of his own teammates. So when anyone brings up West Brom,
similar to Seb Revan against Charlton away last season, but then
nobody punched Seb Revan, thankfully. So and we should say we're wishing Seb Revan all the best at Burton. Burton is becoming something of a feeder club or a scavenger for Wrexham cast-offs, unfortunately. So wishing them the best of luck there. But yeah, West Brom, they've got great Premier League pedigree, and I don't think they've been outside the top two tiers this century. I don't recall in the 21st century them dropping outside of the top two divisions. It's again just another tough game, and it'd be curious to me if Rob and Ryan are in town for the first. It'd be a good one to come to, right? The first home league game.
Matthew in that chat then said I think he was just saying from a West Brom point of view, he's saying, well, the owners will be there, won't they? It's the interesting one. It's a compelling one. It's going to be really sunny again. I mean, it's been a bloody enjoyable heat wave. Wearing shorts and a Wrexham shirt to a Wrexham game is not a luxury we often have. But Saturday does feel like, it almost feels like we've completed the set. You've had your massive away day. You've had a cup game. But now it's Wrexham at the Kairos for a league match, and that's a completely different kettle of fish, isn't it?
It's still really early days, and I don't think this is too downbeat, but I think shock. I might have got my prediction wrong. I think this is these teams are a lot rich. These teams are a lot better than we maybe, or we are maybe not quite as good yet as we thought we might go on to be. Now, like I say, it's August. By the time we get to May, who knows where we're at? January is another option, and I know that Wrexham will have funds allocated for January if we're in the mix. And we know that the racecourse is going to be a tough place to come. But let's see if we get outplayed by West Brom like we did against Hull. I know we ended up getting a decent result, but if we get outplayed again, they will punish us more than Hull did. You know, they had some good chances. McBurney, Gelhard, Drama, who actually gave one of the funniest interviews I've ever seen. Did you see? You know what I mean? He says, "You know what I mean." It's about. I've retweeted it on my own personal. Maybe I need to.
It is hilarious. You talk about what I love is I was watching a video this week actually on Sky Sports, and they were doing a video with Ipswich players, and it was you had to stand, strongly disagree or agree with statements, and it was put to them: are footballers cleverer than their reputation is? And all the Ipswich players said, yeah, we're way more intelligent, we're way more articulate than people have us say. And bless him, who was it? Cody, wasn't it? What was it? Cody Drama.
Drama. Yeah.
He said the phrase in his post-match interview. He said the phrase, "Do you know what I mean?" 21 times in 47 seconds.
Have you got a clip that we can play or not?
Well, here's one. In 4 seconds, he manages to say it 4 times. Right, here we go.
You know, I mean, unbelievable. Yeah.
Right, here we go.
You know, I mean, we saw them. You know, I mean, to Wrexham. Yeah, I mean, unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, we had them. You know, I mean, you know, I mean, to Wrexham. You know, I mean, unbelievable.
Anyway, let's get us back on track. You know what I mean? Because do you actually know what I mean though when I say about West Brom? I just think if we get outplayed again, that's not. I don't think it's sustainable because I think we're going to have to try and be more progressive. Phil Parkinson even said it right in his post match that he said, "I basically told the lads that we can play. We don't have to just sit in." And that was a different team on Tuesday night. I understand that. But with your starters, with O'Brien, who I think looks class, with Windass, with you know, who else are we going to have in there? Dobson, James, whoever it is, Cody. I can't imagine Josh Windass is looking at Isaac Price on the other side and sort of, you know, with worry and trepidation. Do you know what I mean? I can't imagine. I can't. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I'm sorry. That guy's got in my head now. I just can't imagine that Lewis O'Brien's going to look across and see whoever it is in the West Brom midfield, or Kakache is going to look at Tom Fellows and think, well, God, if I go past him, I'm going to struggle the other way. You've got to have belief, especially at home with that atmosphere. Yeah. And
I feel like,
and I think, yeah,
I feel like we almost reverted to type on Tuesday night and approached it like we were the lower league team in the cup game, and we were
we were though, weren't we? Because that was a League One team at best.
Championship team. I still find it incredibly ironic that Casey Palmer ran the show and was not the best Palmer on the pitch. That is just very funny.
He was phenomenal. I thought it was brilliant.
But it's just part of what this process is right now. It is just adapting to a new level, better opponents, better players, having less of the ball. Every time an opponent gets the ball, feeling like you could concede a goal. And it's just a much better product of football, isn't it? When you think about the National League days and stuff and how quick we've gone to Championship level now, the actual quality and pace of the match is just on a completely different level. And Nate, I'm going to, again, just kind of say, for me, I understand that we need to be analytical and take into context what happens on the pitch, but I'm just loving it. I'm absolutely loving being at this level. I keep on just looking at the table, looking at the Championship sleeve patch on my shirt and being like, we're in the Championship. We're in the Championship.
It looks very nice, actually, that shirt. It took about 2 years to get to you, but it looks very nice now you have it. I just thought, because we're near the end, aren't we, Rich? I just thought, we got an email, so you can email us, robrandret@gmail.com, from Ian Roberts, who said, "Hi both, being a bored teacher waiting for the next match over the long summer, I thought I would pass this along. Probably highly inappropriate, I don't think it is, but saves me from actual schoolwork. Have your listeners got any further suggestions?" And basically, what he sent, if you're watching, I'll put it on the screen, but if you're listening, he's basically sent Rich a bingo card full of various things that people say about Wrexham. So these are the phrases he's got so far. So if you've got any suggestions, let us know. But he's put, "You're only famous because of your owners. Disney FC.
Check.
They're ruining the integrity of football.
Check.
Wrexham have no history, and it will all
Check.
end in tears."
Yeah,
That's
check.
one line.
Did you see one today? Carabao Cup draw? A Peterborough fan tweeted, "Why are Wrexham in the northern section of the draw?" He was angry that we were in the northern section of the draw. Look at a map, my dear friend.
So here we go. Another one says they get special treatment from the league. Hollywood Welsh, stick that in your documentary.
Yeah.
They will get bored soon. That's a classic. What else have we got here? You've only supported them since 2021. Another absolute staple.
But we get that though, don't we?
We do. Yeah, we do. Plastic fans, always on Sky. It's another classic. Buying the league. Apparently, that's, Southampton fans were very upset that Parky pointed out they had £50 million worth of substitutes and we had 3.5 million. But anyway, one says Wrexham is not a real football club. They'll be back in the National League soon. All their success is bought, not earned. This is the Americanization of football. This club is just a toy for two actors. No one watched them before the documentary. And lastly, Wrexham fans are just glory hunters. It's a pretty strong bingo card, but I might have a full house by the end of one match day.
Yeah, I feel like he's really got me there. I mean, bang to rights, what I'm going to say to that one. The other one is, of course, the fact that you and me don't sound like we're from Wrexham, which is quite often thrown against
people
us
on
as well.
TikTok do not like our accents, I will say that.
People also don't like the fact, some people can't comprehend that my job is to report on a different football team. I don't support them. I'm paid, believe it or not, I'm paid to do that. So that's all fun and games. But yeah, let us know what would be on your Wrexham bingo card. What are the tirades that rival fans love to throw up our way that you enjoy? Mauled by the Tigers was good though, wasn't it? That was.
I just want to say quickly, I thought the Hull fans were great. I thought they made plenty of noise. Good. I thought they were one of the better away Follands we've had at the racecourse for a while.
And from the minute we had the Joey tribute as well, like they respected that beautifully. They travel really well. They're very distinctly Hull fans. Do you know what I mean? You see the club colours. Yeah. I know Mauled by the Tigers is cringe. It's hilarious that.
No, it's funny. It's funny.
But I think a lot of it is tongue in cheek from their point of view. And
I would have loved nothing more, Rich. If I was in that away, and I would have loved nothing more than at 3-1 up with 2 minutes to go to have been doing more by the Tigers. I don't care if it's cringe. I would have absolutely, in the direction of the tech end, I would have loved that. And if it backfires on you, you just have to take the licks there, unfortunately. But it would have been very, very sweet and funny for them had it paid off, I'm sure.
Yeah, so let us know. West Brom this weekend then, Nath. You've already said you might have changed your prediction for where we finish in the league table. What have you got in store for us on Saturday then? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, in the Predictor League that I've got, remember you can still sign up to that. The description in the description below the details. I predicted 3-1 Southampton. It was 2-1 Southampton. So I sort of expected we'd lose. Very disappointed in the fashion. I have gone with this time on the Predictor app a 2-2 draw at home to West Brom.
Desmond 2-2. Yeah,
Desmond 2-2.
Early kickoffs, I hate. Like, they just don't feel the same. I'm going for, sun shining. I'm wearing my new Wrexham shirt. Wrexham 3, West Brom 0. You've heard it here first. Thank you very much for joining us on Rob, Ryan, Red. Ollie Palmer hat-trick. Thank you very much for joining us on Rob, Ryan, Red, the Wrexham podcast brought to you in association with Red 10 People Development. As always, thank you to Wrexham-based band Hypnotic for the music that stings as well. You can get us on all the social media, Rob, Ryan, Red, and robryanred@gmail.com. Nath, anything else to say before we drift off into the sunset?
No, I gave my shout out to Hugh, who hasn't listened to this podcast. And I also want to give a quick shout out to the My Squin, who are offering like 10 hot food items now. Add the Bang Bang Chicken. Phenomenal. 10 out of 10. I'm coming for
that lasagna on Saturday.
Go there if you want. That's incredible. That's what I'm saying. That's my final remark. Amazing.
Thank you very much. Take care. And we will see you again next time.
Wrexham AFC podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Faye.